Welcome to our January 18, 2019 Teacher in Service. This video will consist of two parts. In the first part, we will familiarize you with the concept of power standards and their identification process. In the second part, we will review the 4 levels of depth of knowledge and how to align these levels to your chosen standards. During this portion of the presentation, you will identify what a power standard is, define the 3 criteria for selecting a power standard, and select power standards for your grade level or content area. What are power standards? Your priority standards are taught with greater depth and rigor. On this slide, you can read through the characteristics of power standards. Why do we need to identify power standards? Because there are so many standards to teach, we need a narrow focus. On this slide, take note of the highlighted outcomes. This will make the rationale a little more clear. The intersection of these 3 criteria is really what helps educators determine their power standards. Please read the next 3 slides to gain a better understanding of what is meant by these 3 criteria with specific examples cited. At this point, you are ready for the first activity. Please read the following slide and pause the video. As a group, identify the power standards. Team members should share the standards they identified individually and discuss where do we agree, where do we disagree. Should any of these standards be combined or clustered? Reach a consensus and have one team member complete the power standards identification table. Your group should identify a minimum of 10 power standards. Once the first column of the power standards identification table is complete, continue viewing the second portion of this presentation. During this portion of the presentation, you will recognize the 4 levels of depth of knowledge, interpret the DOK level for the power standards identified through thoughtful discussions with your colleagues, and connect the DOK level to your identified power standards. What is DOK? On the next few slides, please review Norman Webb's depth of knowledge and its relevance to standards alignment. Level 1, Recall and Reproduction. Recall or recognition of a fact, information, concept, or procedure. Student either knows the answer or does not. The answer does not need to be figured out. Student processes information on a low level, and there is only one right answer. On the next slide, you will see examples of tasks associated with a DOK Level 1. Level 2, Skills and Concepts. Includes the engagement of some mental processing beyond recalling or reproducing a response. Acting on information in some manner requires students to make some decisions as to how to approach the question or problem. This may involve following or selecting appropriate procedures, working with a set of principles, categories, or protocols in routine problems, and there is still only one right answer. On the next slide, you will see examples of tasks associated with Level 2 DOK. Level 3, Strategic Thinking. Items demand use of higher order thinking processes, deep understanding exhibited through planning using evidence and more demanding cognitive reasoning, requires students to go beyond, to explain, to generalize, or connect ideas, the ability to solve a problem in a new context. Tasks have more than one possible answer and require students to justify their response. On the following slide, you will see examples of tasks associated with Level 3 DOK. Level 4, Extended Thinking. Requires higher order thinking processes such as synthesis, reflection, and assessment. Students are expected to make connections, relate ideas within the content or among content areas, and select or devise one approach among many alternatives on how the situation can be solved. Non-routine manipulations. Due to the complexity of cognitive demand, tasks require an extended period of time. Tasks have more than one possible answer or product. On the next slide, you will see examples of tasks associated with Level 4 DOK. Please read the following slides to understand what depth of knowledge is not. The DOK is not determined by the verb, but by the context in which the verb is used and the depth of thinking required. As you read this example, notice the difference in the tasks associated with the verb describe. On this slide, notice how the verbs explain and analyze are used. While these verbs standing alone may indicate a higher cognitive demand, it is what comes after the verb that is most important. In this example, note that the DOK level has not changed, although the task has become more difficult. Look at the following examples, which are asking students to define a word. These are both recall of a definition, but will differ in difficulty to each student. Webb's depth of knowledge challenges us to dig deeper beyond the verb and into the thinking process to expand student learning. We must consciously ask students to deepen their thinking in order to teach them to improve their thinking. Independently, students should be accessing their resources to apply their knowledge in new contexts and across disciplines. At this point, you are ready to complete the second part of this activity. Using your packet guidance documents for depth of knowledge levels, identify the DOK levels for each of your identified power standards. Write the DOK level on the table in the second column. And once your table is complete, please submit one electronic copy via email. Next steps. We will gather this information to guide our curricular planning and collaborative discussions at upcoming department and committee meetings. Your input is highly valued and appreciated as we move toward a standards-based mindset. Thank you for your time and your participation today.